Welcome back to a Celtic state of mind. Yes, Jungle Lion, you are right. We're back all the way from Belfast, at the weekend for the lead up to the St Mirren Scottish Cup clash away from home. There's been loads of talk, Chris. Talk about form, talk about shape, culture, mentality, recruitment. But when it comes down to it, we've got 11 guys on the park. We're going to have to talk about them because there's a couple of wee changes in there I didn't expect, Chris.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is a point, right? And this is where we get made to look a bit silly because we've been crying out for Kyogo and Kyogo and another striker to play up front together, and it looks as though whether it be the number 10, but just behind the number 9 role, I'm not sure. But this is what we've been asking for. But even then, we've got Tony at right back. Looks like we've got Bernabe, who, in fairness, came on to a bit of a game in the second half against Hibs. Is in. Bernardo's dropped to the bench. Abada's not even in the squad. I've not heard of an injury yet. I've seen some speculation, but I've not heard of an injury yet. So maybe get some clarity on that during the call. But yeah, so a lot to digest in terms of the changes. And I think fingers crossed, it's a positive change.
Well, straight off the bat, looking at the lineup, trying to figure out the shape of the team, I think is a positive. And the reason I think it's a positive is because we've become so predictable. Yeah. We're so one-paced. We're going to be talking about all of this kind of thing because there is no doubt we have a strong squad. And let's be honest, Chris, I've heard a lot about Brendan Rodgers' ability as a manager. I wouldn't go as far to say he's an elite manager because if you're an elite manager, you are coaching at the very top level of football in one of the top 6 leagues in Europe. So I don't subscribe to that, but he's a quality, to use his own word, he's a quality manager. And I just don't think we're getting enough from what we actually have. Yes, you're disappointed with the recruitment, of course you are, but we've still got enough and we're not seeing the style of play. We're not seeing the tempo. No. We're not seeing guys like Kyogo kick on. And that is the biggest frustration, isn't it? It's not a case of us chucking the baby out with the bathwater. It's more of a sense of, listen, we're not playing great. What's wrong? How do we change it? And I don't think it's always down to personnel. I think you change the shape. We've been crying out for it, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I think you talk about Brendan Rodgers. He's always identified with a certain style of football. And you know, sometimes it works, it looks good when you've got personnel to kind of fit into that system. I think the issue we've had is we're so used to seeing Kyogo playing a really fast-paced, the sort of arrowhead point of a really fast-paced formation. And style, and I think he really thrives on that. You know, he's a guy who likes to get in behind. He likes to beat the offside trap and use his pace and use his intelligent movement to get in there. And we've not. I think the way Brendan plays is a bit more patient. Some might say a bit more reserved or restricted. We don't see the wingers, you know, whipping the balls in ahead of the defender, allowing Kyogo or an equivalent striker to get onto it. But I think this change looks like a positive one. This looks like maybe a slightly different way to get some real value out of Kyogo. Now, my view is that he'll probably play off of Ida up front. I think Ida looks like he's got the strength to maybe hold the ball up, maybe allow Kyogo to bring the overlap, come in either side of him, maybe run ahead of defenders. But I think fundamentally what you're going to have here, I hope, is you're going to have the St Mirren defenders not just having to track one of our strikers, but trying to track 2 real attacking players. And that means it's going to leave space. It's going to leave gaps, not just for Kyogo potentially, but Maeda maybe to cut inside. Maybe you'll have Palma will be able to cut inside. It gives the defenders a little bit of a different problem for what we've given them throughout this season. And I think that's really important.
I want to pick up on that actually, Chris, because I'm going to go back to a conversation I had. I'm a sponge. When I'm amongst football people, I'm a fan, right? So I've never been in the changing room. I've never done the training drills. I don't know how their minds work. However, when I'm in their company, I just, I ask them 1,000,001 questions to try and understand the inner workings of football, of Celtic recruitment, training, the whole thing, conditioning, and the tactical side of it, because not everybody understands tactics. So what I like to do is talk to people who have played under great managers, who have been part of youth academies, and ask them about, tactics. How would you play against Brendan Rodgers? How should Brendan Rodgers change things? And I do it all the time. I'm going to go back to a conversation I had a wee while back. In fact, at the time, Brendan may still have been the manager first time round. I had a great conversation with Brian McClare, who has recently been in the news because he was the guy at Old Trafford that changed the music to This Is the One from Tina Turner's Simply the Best, not Gary Neville, right? It was big. It was Chalky that did it.
Okay, yeah.
absolutely. And I remember talking to him about Brendan Rodgers because at that time he had experience of coming up against Brendan Rodgers' young teams when Rodgers was coming through the ranks as a young coach.
Oh, might have lost you, Paul John.
Player thought that he was someone who could be sussed out. He could be sussed out and he could be worked out really quickly. And I think what's happened here is we've got a situation with regards to Rodgers now where the other teams in the league have sussed him out. They figured out how to play against Brendan. And the other thing that Chalky noted and observed was the fact that once he's sussed out, he can't change it. He's very, very much like, this is my stringent plan and I'm going to stick to it. Sorry, ladies and gents, I had a wee blue circle on my screen there for a second. So if you lost me for a moment, I apologise. So I think the predictability aspect of it, we've seen it this season, Chris. You come up against a team and they manage to play against us. Now, all week long, you've then got Livingston, Dundee, St Johnstone, Hibs, studying these tapes of a team that's managed to play against our system, suss our system out, and basically replicate the same system. Now, people say, they park the bus. That's like a coverall. It's a lot harder to park the bus against a quality, high-tempo team. And I think that's why Ange Postecoglou's team, I'm going to say...
You guys may have lost Paul John again.
I'm back.
Paul John, are you back?
I'm back, mate.
Yeah, I think. I mean, listen. I think we're catching the gist of your point there. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's what I've called tactical inflexibility this season with Brendan's formation. I think, look, it's a formation that utilises the personnel pretty well. But what concerns me is when it's not working during a game. We don't see it changing. Teams are coming out. When we were going at half time, maybe nothing each, maybe even we're 1-0 up. But teams are getting galvanised by the fact that we're not putting them away early in the game, and they're coming out and they're thinking, you know what, we can have a real go here. For me, we saw at Aberdeen, we saw at Hibs, we saw those teams come out and actually create chances. They might not have taken them, but they created chances, enough chances to either draw or even win. I mean, if it wasn't for Joe Hart at Hibs, we'd have been two or three goals down potentially. We just didn't get started in that second half at all. And I think this is the problem. We need a plan B, right? Or we need the ability to change it when it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think we need to find ways to get the best out of our personnel. We've spoken about Kyogo a lot, but I look at sometimes guys like McGregor. I think Kilmac is a fantastic player, good captain. He's been an amazing servant for the club. But this season I've watched, and there was a moment in particular, the Hibs game, which I think exemplified what I'm going to speak about. He ran forward, was doing one of his classic driving runs towards the box, and I was crying out. I mean, I was probably being a lot more vulgar than I'm being at the moment. I was crying out. I was saying, hit the shot, take the shot. And he played it left to Maeda, and the move kind of lost momentum and it broke down, and we didn't create anything. And I think last season under a different system, I think McGregor's driving in there and he's having a shot and probably testing the keeper at a minimum. And I want to see guys like him getting more freedom of movement, working in a system where they're really playing to their strengths. And that if that means we're changing it up. I mean, today we've dropped Bernardo, for example, out of midfield. To maybe give us a bit more of an attacking edge with Kyogo. We don't know if it's going to work, right? It is maybe a little bit of a gamble. We've been crying out for it, and we could actually end up scratching our heads at halftime, saying, "You know what, this is not working." But I've got faith that this is a really positive move and an attacking move. So yeah, looking forward to it.
I think there's a lot of people in the game, right? Who, Chris, again, I'm going to go back to the comment I made. I've never been involved in that environment. I mean, you imagine the egos that exist in football. We see them in dead-end jobs, for the love of God. You imagine it at the top end of European football, where you've got the gaffer, you've got players in that dressing room, other than obviously Brendan Rodgers, often when the players are making more money than the manager, the egos are running wild. I've seen it with young guys that have never kicked the ball for a first team, and they're walking about with a watch in the toilet bag and the fast car and all this kind of stuff, the tattooed sleeves and everything else, So the egos are absolutely wild. And I think sometimes with a manager who knows the job inside out, who has achieved success in the game at the top level, there's a wee aspect of him whereby it's like, I know best. And if you're going to tell me to do something different, I'm going to stick stringently to my plan because I'm the gaffer and I know best. I think, though, it does get to the point where the football becomes so turgid and slow and predictable that in order to ensure that you do the best for the team and the football club, you have got to make that change. I'm not quite sure, looking at the team, exactly what the shape's going to be. But for anyone who hasn't seen it, I'm going to run through it. I'm going to apologise that I know that I disappeared for a couple of moments, but at the same time, I also knew that Chris would just fill in the blanks, and I'm sure you did, when I had the big black screen and the big blue dial going round, the blue dial of death. Here we go. Wi-Fi. That's what it's all about. The starting 11 for Celtic, we have Joe Hart in goals. I want to talk a wee bit about most of these players as we lead up to the kick-off. Tony Ralston, my favourite player, keeps saying it right back. What about his tackle? What about his tackle that led to the move where Kyogo wins the penalty? I know it's been shown on...
Old school.
Old school. Absolutely. Yeah. You don't see the thing, right? You talk about technique. You talk about technique. You can have tactics. You can have shape. One thing you can't give a player is heart, passion and desire. Now, you won't get to the top with that alone, Chris. You've got to have all the ability and everything else as well. But I tell you something, for me, that wee moment, I go in about moments of a season, like sometimes it's a save, right? And I always mention when Pat Bonner made a penalty save against Stranraer in the Scottish Cup in the centenary season in one of the early rounds. You never talk about that when it's a sun-kissed day at Hampden Park and McAvenny's getting all the acclaim. But there's moments of a season that you go back to.
Absolutely.
That moment with Tony. That moment with Tony.
That could be one. That could be one. I mean, I'm the same. I remember 1998. We're trying to stop the Rangers getting a 10, and there's Alan Stubbs, and again the Old Firm game at the time, and puts a header in, and we get the draw and we kick on from there, and it's one of those moments. And I thought, it's interesting because we were up against it at times, up against Hibs, certainly in the second half. They came out, they tested Joe Hart. Joe Hart again, I think, talk about moments, a couple of really big saves. But then, you see Tony Ralston, driving in, really direct, clear in his mind what he's going to go do, wins the ball. And it just, I think, see if you're a player and you see your teammate doing that, you'd be like, yes, come on, let's go, let's get in. And there's another guy I want to mention, and I want to mention because both me and you have had a little, a few digs at him this season already. But second half, towards the later stages of the second half, I thought one guy showed a bit of heart and actually made a few good tackles as well, Alexandro Bernabe. Now, I've got the same concerns I've had all season. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not going to, suddenly jump on the Bernabe love train. I think there's issues with his positioning. I think there's issues with his, with his fundamentals as well. But that was a period there where I thought, you know what, son, you're having a really good go. And you're right. That's the heart and the commitment and the determination, and you want to see that throughout the team. Now, obviously, as you've mentioned, that you need talent to back it up as well. And I'm still a little bit on the fence in terms of Bernabe. But somebody made a good point in the chat actually on the Friday show, which I think was a fair point. He is just getting a run of games at the moment. So maybe the more run of games he gets, the more familiar with his teammates, maybe he'll come into a game. But I want to see that kind of ethic going through the whole team today. Just having a real up for it, real bit of dig, real bit of fight.
You know what? Sometimes people think you know nothing about football because this is kind of an old-fashioned discussion that we're having. But how many talented players have we brought in who haven't had the basics?
Oh, yeah.
They've just not had it. And I think that when you're looking at someone like Tony Ralston, across the other side of the park, I'm glad you brought it up, I have been a big critic. I've been a big critic of Alexandro Bernabe. I've said he's not got it. My biggest disappointment in the recruitment side of things is that we signed 11 players. One of them wasn't a left back. We start to miss Taylor even more so. The old the fact he's not been in the team, he becomes a better player. But he was playing well. Absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that. But he was playing well prior to it. But you're right. I think what we did see from him is there's positional naivety. There's the lack of defensive quality there. But I tell you, if he's able to do what he did, as you say, in the kind of latter stages of the Hibs game, where there was a fight, drive, passion, see all the stuff that you think's a prerequisite to play football at any level. And you know that it's not because you don't always see it.
Yeah.
If we're getting it from Bernabe in the meantime, until Taylor comes back in, then fair play to him. I want him to prove guys like me wrong, because I've not rated him this season. Some good points coming through. Maybe St Mirren will be lost without their talisman, Big Quan. He's done well since he's gone to St Mirren. And we've got Personal Jesus coming in, and I like this because it's nice and positive. Hail, hail, fellas. The double is on. It's a dog fight, but we are doing this. Listen, it's going to be a massive one today, isn't it? It already is. David Boyle. Home has disappeared again. I just wish the boy got a proper chance, as there is a player in there. And I think there is a player in there as well, David. I would actually put him in the same category in terms of where he is in the Celtic squad alongside a player like Yang. I think he's one for the future. And I'm actually glad we'll get through to the subs. I'm glad to see a Wattle on the bench today. I've got to say. The central defensive partnership of Welsh and Scales then. Scales again got injured. Welsh again got injured the other night. Scales, I think, in terms of consistency, has been our best centre half. Last week, prior to the Hibs game, Lawrence called it. He says he thinks that Rodgers will go for the guys that know what it takes to get us over the line. Welsh knows, having come through the system, what it means to be a Celtic player and a winger. But in terms of performance, what do you make of the partnership from what you've seen? I know they've not played a lot of football together.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point, right? I know Scales, like for me, has been pretty consistent throughout the season. I don't think he's done a huge amount wrong. There's just been, we've seen it even in the last couple of games, particularly again when we've gone a goal down, or we've lost a goal rather. Scales has looked a little bit shaky, along with whatever partner he's had, whether it be Welsh or Nawrocki rather. But I think what we need a settled defence. We haven't had much of that this season. We've had it in little periods, but we've not had a settled defence. And for me, that must be one of the toughest roles to play on a football park. You've got a defensive partner. You're trying to make sure both of you are aligned in terms of your position. If you're playing a back four, are we, keeping our line, stopping guys from getting in behind? So communication must be key. Building up that understanding must be key. And I think, the constant change of partners, I think, has impacted Scales in most recent games. Having said that, Scales has been consistent throughout the season. I think Welsh, almost every time he's been called upon, he's not let us down. He's a big, honest player, right? He's just a big, honest boy who I think does the fundamentals well, actually. If we're talking about a player that does the fundamentals well, I think he is. I think he's an old school style defender. I think there are other defenders who are maybe better at playing the ball and carrying the ball forward. For me, I think Welsh is a guy who just, he likes to, do his job and do it pretty well. And I think, the more these guys will play together, then the more effective they'll be. But I think it's a strong central defensive partnership. I've still got question marks over Rocky. Carter Vickers, you want back, but you don't want to rush him back in case we set him back again. And I think, that, for me at the moment, I mean, Lagerbielke's not even in the squad again. I've no idea why we stopped him going to Lecce. But, I think that's the strongest central defensive pairing we could play at the moment.
Yeah, good point about Lagerbielke. Don't understand it, Chris. I really don't. But you know what? I'm not going to labour the recruitment thing today, because I'm of that view now that we've got 13 league games. We've got Rodgers. We've got a strong enough squad to win this league and hopefully win this Scottish Cup as well. We know that the cup competitions can throw up surprises. Unfortunately, there wasn't one at Ibrox yesterday. Brunei did try his best, and we'll not get into refereeing either.
Wasn't a bad effort.
It wasn't a bad effort indeed. When we look then at the midfield, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, right, are we just going to a classic 4-4-2, or is it going to be a case of playing 4-2-3-1? Because I know that Rodgers has done that in the past, with Kyogo kind of dropping behind the front man, the target man, if you like, in Adam Ira. But the midfield too, we certainly know that Callum McGregor, the captain, and also Matt O'Reilly are going to be making up the midfield too. And again, sometimes it just comes with a couple of bad performances from the team. I mentioned during the week, because these are discussion points, Chris, that you have all week, and you've always had them. Social media didn't make you start having discussion points about who should be playing left back, right wing, whatever it is. It's happened for year dot. Supporters buses, boozers, in at the work, whatever. You've always had these discussions, right? So my discussion point was, we're in a scenario where we've brought in Kuhn, starts off well at Pittodrie, gets a goal. He's really poor against Hibs. You bring on Abada at Hibs, and he's really poor as well. So the discussion point is, right, you're thinking, Kuhn, you don't want to drop him so early in his Celtic career. But you're looking at Abada and thinking, wait a minute, he's not kicked a ball all season. Now, we know everything that surrounds it, right?
Yeah.
Injury issues, okay, but he's fit enough to be in the team. So, yeah, he has had injury problems, but he's fit enough to be in a team, and this isn't his first game back. And the second issue, of course, is the political scenario that he finds himself in with regards to being pressurised by people back in Israel to basically leave Celtic Football Club. And then it's the state of mind around that. I don't know the intricacies of where he's at on that one. What I do know is Celtic kept him in January. So he's a player that he's either being utilised or he's not. Should he play on form? My answer to that is not. He shouldn't be. It's not a witch hunt. Absolutely not a pile-on or any of these things that you get accused of on social media, Chris. He's not playing well enough. That's why he's not on the team. The interesting point, no, he's not in the squad. Now, has anything came out to your knowledge around the reasons behind that?
I had a look before coming on the show. I saw a few people asking the same question. I didn't see anything concrete to say he was injured or why he's been left out. I've not had a chance to listen to Brendan Rodgers yet, so no, it's a little bit of a mystery. I mean, when I look at Abada, I think there's a class player there. We've seen it for a couple of seasons. We know that he's not just a player who has great potential, but he's delivered at times on the pitch. So he's not suddenly became a bad player, and I think he's had injury problems. He's a very young man having to deal with a very politically charged situation, none of his own making. I don't envy him at all, for the situation he's in, and it's his stance on that conflict is not my business or anyone else's business. That's for him to manage. But that's a huge amount of pressure for a young man to be under. So I've got sympathy for Abada and potentially for reasons for him being off form. But I think part of a manager's responsibility is to protect players as well, and sometimes protect players from, being in that firing line. If they're not playing well, take them out for a bit. Take them out. Maybe introduce them at a point where it's an easier situation to go on and make an impact. One of our problems is we've got no easy games. We've got no easy situations now because we're in a title fight, partly I think through our own making. And we can't afford to have guys not firing on all cylinders. We simply can't. It doesn't make sense on a football field to be playing guys out of form. So unless there's a real need to play Abada, I think it's the right decision to take him out of the team just now. I would look for opportunities to bring him on, maybe if we manage to bring in a lead, or create a lead for ourselves in a game future. But that requires him to be on the bench. Today, I'm not sure of the reasons why he's out. Hopefully he'll come back and he'll show us what he can do, or if it's something external to the football form, then wish him well, obviously for the future. But yeah, I think it's the right decision to take him out given his form.
Absolutely, and Lucy says that double denim is a great listen. There you go. You've even got a wee green love hat there, double denim. You get plenty of stick on the Acsom chat group, so it's nice to bring up a bit of
absolutely,
bit of positivity. Right, here we go. Ewan Boy Martin, always great to hear from you, and thanks for getting involved on the YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, all of that good stuff. I am not that confident that we will win today, says Ewan. Just hope playing with two strikers improves our play. As I say, yeah, we're playing with two strikers regardless of the shape, but we might play 4-2-1. 4-2-3-1. Certainly an attack. I just look at that and think to myself, you're covering all bases. It's not as though I don't think it's a case of us being overrun in the midfield. Here's my take on it. Right, so we've been playing with the three in the middle, the Bernardo, McGregor, and O'Reilly. That's what we've been playing with, and it looks as though we've been losing the kind of midfield battle recently. But I think more so than that, the reason for it is that you look at the stats with regards to touches the ball, passes of the ball. Centre halves have got all the ball, so you're thinking to yourself, well, why is that no going quicker to the midfield men? And I think that's one of the issues. So by the time the central defences are releasing the ball, they're looking maybe to release it to the wingers. I'd like to see the heat map of where the balls are going. And unfortunately for me, I just feel that they've not been involved enough. Another thing I would point out, looking at the fact that Kyogo's back on the pitch from the start, that move that we were bigging up Tony Ralston, and rightly so. See, once it gets to Kyogo, that quick, intricate passing move by Matt O'Reilly, that's what we've seen from Kyogo in the Champions League when he's got his goals this season. That was Kyogo creating something out of nothing. You know, creating a bit of space out of nothing. And I was looking at that thinking, right, it's only one move. Does he get back in the team? I am delighted, Chris, that he's back in the team. I've been asking everybody with more football knowledge than me, so that's quite a lot of people, how do we get Kyogo working again? And the big thing for me is I just feel that the pace of a game, back to front, is completely different to what it has been since Kyogo came in. And I'm going to say it, Liam Carrigan agreed with me, and I'm going to have to give him credit for this. It's not necessarily just down to the wingers, because by the time the wingers get the ball, Chris, the team we're playing in the final third have regrouped. They've got the shape back up. As I said before, they've been working on their defensive shape all week. We're just not getting there quickly enough. We've not got them on the back foot. There's no break in the play. It's not like there's a counter-attack. And I says that's why Kyogo thrives on playing a high-tempo, high-line style of football. We've not been playing it. And that's not just the wingers, although they've not been great this season. Liam Carrigan made the point. That's why he's less effective for Japan. Because Japan play that slower style of football.
I thought it was a great point Liam made, and it's always brilliant insight, you know, because he's got such good knowledge of that, you know, the football culture and the matches out there. So it was fantastic to hear that. And actually, when you apply that and you look at the games this season, you can absolutely see what he's talking about. And I think you're right. I think we're too passive when we're in possession, and there's a tendency to try and look for this really intricate, you know, wonderful Hollywood-style pass. And actually what we need is just a bit more urgency. You know, we need to be moving forward as a team when we're in possession. You know, Kyogo makes so many really good, intelligent runs. And whether it's in the central midfield or whether it is out in the wings or, you know, whether it's one of our central defenders, a la Scales, you know, running forward, we've got to react to those runs. We've got to try and time them right and get them into space, because then the defenders have to react quickly. And if the defenders are reacting quickly, they're more likely to react as individuals and not as a team, and therefore we're going to get space. And that's where the one touch, the layoffs, and the quick movements and the quick reaction shots. That's when it really works. That's where I agree with you. Kyogo thrives. What I noticed from the Hibs game is when Kyogo did come on, and he came on, and he played a little bit deeper, and there was a couple of layers, but he picked up the ball, and he does something we don't see enough from Kyogo. He ran and he drove in, and he was very direct. You know, showed some good footwork, and he wins the penalty, right? And that penalty doesn't get won if Kyogo doesn't pick it up and take that incentive to go and drive forward a goal. You know, okay, we say we only got 2 goals from 2 penalties, but you have to be in a position to get the penalties awarded. And I think that second one showed that if we just attack in the right way, at the right pace, and the right tempo, and players take the initiative, we will create chances. And whether those chances will come from goals, whether they'll come from getting penalty chances or penalty shouts, deflections, doesn't matter. We need to get in there. We need to speculate.
Yep, and it does look like a more direct approach from Brendan Rodgers. Steph McDonald makes the point. We demanded change and we got it. Let's do this. Absolutely. And I'm not even thinking about what if it doesn't work, because we've been demanding it so long. It's got to work. Got to work. Tony, by the way, watching Acsom from the beach in Canton. Life is good. It sounds pretty good, Tony. It sounds pretty good. I'll tell you what, I once had to set the Acsom bulletin up for wee James McKenzie from somewhere similar. So, yeah, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope the crocodiles are at bay and the cocktails are flowing, Tony. John Sweeney, Rodgers needed to change it, hopefully a better display and result, 100%. Martin has some reservations about the back four as well. So let's see how the team will perform today. We're almost at kickoff time. So I think a prediction is necessary from you, Chris. We need a prediction from you.
Yeah, I'm confident because Kyogo and Ida are on the pitch. I think it'll give St Mirren a different problem than what we've been giving teams this season. I'm going to go 4-0 Celtic. 4-0
Celtic, says Chris. I'm going to say 3-0. Let's join the action, and we'll see you at half-time on a Celtic State of Mind.
Yeah, Leo, 1-0.